Hello, everyone. It's Charlene Lee. I'm excited to be here today to talk about leadership credibility in the age of AI. And I get this question quite a bit because people are constantly asking me, what AI courses should I be taking? What do I need to learn to be ready for AI? And how do I catch up? Because I feel like I'm constantly behind. Welcome to the club. We're all constantly feeling like we're behind. And the big question though that's underlying all these things is, am I falling behind? Do I have what I need to know in order to lead effectively? And very importantly, how will my team trust me if I don't have all of the answers? So this is what we want to talk about today is what does it mean to be a leader with credibility in the age of AI when you feel like you don't know what you're doing? When the reality is there is so much happening with AI, it is simply impossible to stay up to date on everything. So I just want to reassure you that you are not alone, that almost every leader I talk to feels some version of this. And they all feel like the ground is shifting right underneath them. And this is what the real gap is. It is not a knowledge gap. It is not the fact that you don't know enough about AI. Because if you are already using AI, even a little bit, then you already know how to use it. You know how to open up a browser window or use an app on your phone, how to put in a prompt and get an answer out of it. So this is not a training issue. This is a leadership issue. And we call this, and Cottrell Welsh and I call this in our book, Winning with AI, the knowing, doing, leading gap. We know that AI is important. We're not sure how to do something meaningful with it. And very importantly, we do not know how to lead others through something that you are still figuring out for yourself. So today, what we want to talk about is how do you deal with this shift? Because fundamentally, this is an identity threat to you as a leader. You have built your entire career on having all of the answers. And you have this confidence that's built on that expertise. And your authority as a leader comes from knowing more than everyone else around you about how to get the work done. And now, in this crucial moment, you're being asked to lead a transformation that you don't fully understand and to project confidence when you are feeling very uncertain about what the future looks like, and to have a vision when the landscape is constantly changing. So, how do you approach all of this? Because your previous leadership expertise and experience is not going to be enough. So the question that really matters is that your people aren't asking, does my leader know everything that they need to know about AI? Do they know everything about it? That's not the question they're asking. They're instead asking, can my leader help us figure this out together? Can we figure out where we need to go? And it's not to have the answers, but are they going to be able to lead us in a way that we can figure it out as we go along? So, we're going to explore today, how do you build credibility when you don't have all the answers? How do you lead when the rules keep changing, the ground keeps shifting underneath you? And how do you let go of who you are going to become and who you're going to become, the person that your organization needs? Because this is going to be a shift in the way that you show up, in the way that you lead. So I wanted to pull in some great research that has been done for over 30 years now. I think it's going on 40 years, by Jim Kouzes and Barry Posner. And they wrote this amazing book called, let me just pull it up here, the Leadership Challenge. And they have surveyed over 3 million leaders worldwide to understand what are the core components and characteristics of leaders who are successful. And the way that they think about it is that leadership is a relationship between those who choose to lead, step forward and lead, and the followers who are inspired to follow them. So there are 4 leadership competencies, and we'll go into this in greater detail. They are being honest, they are being competent, that you are forward looking, and that you are inspiring. And there are two laws of leadership that Posner and Kouzes put out. The first one is if you don't believe in the messenger, you won't believe the message. So people have to believe you as a leader. That is the source of credibility. And those four characteristics are the sources of credibility. And then the second law of leadership is do what you said you will do. If you say we're going to go do this, you better go do that. Otherwise, your credibility completely falls apart. And so the way that this looks in terms of, let me just put out the slides so you can see where they're coming from. You can get them at bit.ly/leadership credibility CLI. And I'll post that to the live stream too as well in the comments. So the thing that I think is so important is that these are very classic definitions. And again, they still hold true today. These are, again, being honest is about being consistent to make sure that is the foundation of trust. Because if people don't have leaders who are honest with them, they're not going to believe them. Again, believing the messenger. They're competent is being capable of getting things done and having answers. How do we do this? Well, this is how we do it. Let's get it done. Forward looking is when you can see where you're going to go, predict where the future is going, have a vision of where we're going, and then inspiring is in being able to project confidence and energize others to act. So these are all very true of what leadership has looked like, the characteristics that lead to leadership credibility. And the question now becomes, what do my followers need today to be willing to follow me? And the problem right now is that it's not that this framework isn't working, it's just incomplete for what we need to know. Because this traditional way of looking at leadership credibility is very difficult to practice in the age of AI. And the reason is because the rules have changed. The number one thing is that we have an expertise obsolescence problem. The OECD, I was looking up this data, said that your credibility, your skills back in 1987 had a shelf life of about 30 years. Today, they're estimating that your shelf life of your skills is less than 2 years. So AI is, again, accelerating this exponentially. So our skills need to stay up to date. So we have to be constantly learning. And what happens is that this whole area of competency, of being competent, is being challenged. And I think this quote in particular from McKinsey is a great report about identity and leadership back in 2018. But I love this quote in particular. Letting go of your need to know means challenging your identity as exceptionally competent. And this is the core and the crux of the problem facing leaders today. Your need to know to the answers, to have the knowledge, to know everything before you act. The reality is you can't do that anymore. You have to let that go. And this is a key issue for leaders to understand today. In the past, you were probably promoted because you had all the answers. You have confidence that was built on that expertise. You have authority, and it came from knowing more than anyone else. But what your followers need now, the people that you lead need now, is that they're anxious too about their own relevance. They're looking to you not for answers, but how to be in uncertainty. The reality is, uncertainty is here to stay. So, how do we show up? How do we thrive in this uncertainty? Because we're going to have to figure that out because it's not going to change. And they need to see you learning in addition to leading. And so, this is what I call the vulnerability paradox. Leaders, I love this quote from The Art of Leadership. Leaders who are prepared to show their vulnerability more easily gain the trust of others are, in fact, more effective leaders. So the thing that we wrote about, Katja and I wrote about in the book, Winning with AI, is that the number one barrier to workforce adoption of AI isn't the complexity of AI, it's fear. And as long as that fear is not addressed, it's not normalized to understand how uncertainty works in the organization, your organization will not be able to move forward. So the updated credibility model is that we have the same 4 pillars that I talked about before. And I'm going to throw the do what you say model into this too as well. Let me pull up the slide. So the better way to think about this now, these 4 characteristics are updated. So being honest is also about the transparency about not knowing, about not having the answers. And competency isn't just about having answers, it's your ability to learn and your learning agility. I'm going to go into greater detail about that. And forward looking means about being able to navigate uncertainty together. And then inspiring is modeling curiosity, and doing what you say is learning what you said you learned. So, a couple of things, I'm going to go into them in a little bit more detail. So, the first thing about honesty, let me just go first and check and see if there are any questions before I go into greater detail here. Jay, Brian, thank you so much for posting the link up there. Um, and Jay Johnson asked the question, what is changing with the change in circumstances? I think that the key change, Jay, it's again, it's been happening for a while. For those of us who live in uncertainty and thrive with disruption, we've known that this is happening. But for many, many leaders, they've been able to put it off and say, okay, I don't have to deal with this right now. I'm just going to continue leading the way I have. But with AI here now, they know they have to adopt it. They know they have to be able to bring it into organizations, and they worry about how do I show up as a leader? So that I think is the biggest change in circumstance. And Janaid says, it's amazing they were only in year 2. Yes, so much has changed. Again, so much has changed in this era. My concern is that the leaders haven't been changing in the way that they need to. And hello, Jeff, my old friend Jeff Taylor. I think some skills and abilities are cumulative. These don't expire. So true. New tools reshape the curve of some of these abilities. Disruption moments demand anchor skills. I love that. Anchor skills and flexing strong character skills. So true, Jeff. Absolutely true. And then this is what I truly believe. Really good leaders thrive in this era. And the things I'm going to go through and talk about how these 4 pillars, again, to Jeff's point, are so very true today. They just need to be updated and to be put into the context of the times of today. So let me go through it and talk about them quickly. So, honest, the classic definition of being honest was to be consistent, have integrity, keep your promises. And the updated definition is about transparency, about the uncertainty, and admitting gaps and say, I don't know yet. And the yet is very important because you will eventually know. So the shift is instead of saying, here is the plan, you would say, here's what we know, here's what we don't know, and here's how we're going to figure it out together. That's the core part of honest, because if you were to go out there and say to people, we know exactly what we're going to do with AI, people aren't going to believe you. They're just like, how do you know? Because everything is changing so quickly. Instead, if you say, we have a general direction, we know what our business strategy is, those fundamentals haven't changed. Or you could even say, this new change that's happening with AI is challenging one of our core tenets of our business strategy. And we have to be able to look at that with clear eyes and figure out what we need to do. So, what we need from our leaders today, what your followers need, is not a leader who has all the answers, but a leader who models how to learn in real time. And Jeff basically says it all comes down to trust. Absolutely, 100%. And the question becomes, how do you build trust when you don't have all the traditional foundations to build trust? And this is a nuance, I think, that I've been exploring with the leaders I've been working with. And so that the shift is being able to say that I don't understand this yet. I'm still learning. We're all learning together. And when you do this, you give permission to everyone else in your leadership chain of command, everybody in your organization, to also do the same. And I guarantee you, they will all breathe a sigh of relief, because then they will be saying, okay, so how do we actually do this? And so I think, again, this competency of learning, having the expertise, learning agility is very important. I have a slide here. I believe, is this the one? I can't read it in small print. I'm going to go to this the next one, learning agility. So learning agility, I want to talk about this because this is where the competency comes from. It's not about learning more. And again, it's not about taking more courses. And it's really about the speed at which you can apply what you have learned. So instead of asking, what do I need to learn about AI? Start asking, what do I need to try with AI? Because it's only in the application of your learnings that you actually figure out what works and what doesn't work. Otherwise, it stays completely theoretical. All right, so let me just go back and just talk about the other two pillars very quickly. Forward looking. So this is all about being able to navigate uncertainty. In the past, the classic definition was having a vision, being able to predict the future and chart the course. Like, this is the direction we're going in. This is what we're going to do. And having absolutely certainty about this is the direction to go in. And the new way of thinking about forward looking is to be absolutely clear about the direction of travel, but embrace the uncertainty about the path. So it's like, this is our destination, this is our purpose, this is our vision. And the exact path of how we're going to get there may look very different because we're going to have to navigate all of the challenges and opportunities that come up in a way. So this is so important because I think you have to be realistic about saying this. In the past, you could say, I know where we're going and how we'll get there. And now what you have to say, I know why we're going, and we'll figure out the how of how to get there. So lead with the why, the purpose, the reasons why you're going on this journey, not the what, the specific plan, and build in very explicit places where you're going to have learning and pivot points. One of the things that Katya and I write about is in the book is called the 6-quarter walk. And it's the ability to put out a 6 quarters, 18-month plan, but then every quarter committing to reviewing the plan and modifying the plan based on the changes that happen. We like to say you write your strategy in ink and you write your plan in pencil so they can change it, erase it, move it around, and everyone understands this is the playbook that we're having. Because if it's not written down, it's not real. And so this ability to be forward looking, but not with certainty, but forward looking in the face of uncertainty is a really important skill to develop. And then finally, the last pillar, which is being inspiring, to inspire people. Again, the classic definition of this is to project confidence, motivate through a vision. And the flip side of this, I think, in inspiring people now is to, again, not be 100% confident because you actually don't know. It's instead to inspire curiosity, to model what it means to be curious. And that in itself is going to be incredibly inspiring because you're going to make it safe for people to ask questions, to be curious, to say, this doesn't make sense with the things that's happening over here. How do we reconcile that? And the issue here is that you have to be able to reward curiosity over certainty, to be able to create that space so that people will be willing to do that hard work of setting aside the need to be certain and instead to be curious for the time. So the key here, the shift for you, is to make sure you're asking more questions than you're answering questions in your meetings. So reward people for surfacing problems, not just for coming up with solutions. And that's a very, very big difference. All right, I have a couple comments here. We have it from, I think this may be my friend Lisa. Emma Shad talks about psychological safety comes from normalizing uncertainty, absolutely, in real moments, not just saying, it's okay not to know. And so I think this is a great practice to say, again, to when you want to encourage psychological safety, it is all about doing it in the right moments. When people are like, oh, they're stepping out of into a space of being vulnerable and saying, yes, it's okay. Absolutely. This is normal. This is what we want to be doing. I have this great comment from Janelle. Leader is a combo pack. I love that, of theory plus skill and practical work. And we're going to get into the practical work in just a second. I love all these comments. Keep them coming. All right. Scott says, leveraging AI effectively requires the willingness to pivot and accept that mistakes are part of progress. So well said. Many leaders hesitate to admit when something goes wrong, but that mindset can limit innovation and growth. Absolutely. Because if you can't admit when something's going wrong, guess what? Everybody else in your organization won't either. And then you run into huge problems because you're not addressing problems, you're just hiding them. So I do want to say there is the question becomes oftentimes how do you actually redo this? How do you actually step into this new space? Because some people will say, well, this feels like a 180 turn from the way I have traditionally led people. And if you've always had the answers to suddenly say, I don't know anything and everything, people might think something is horribly wrong. So it may feel like it's performative or it's just the latest management trend to be vulnerable and have and support psychological safety. And it could erode trust rather than build it. So again, I hear a lot of leaders saying that if I become vulnerable without any context, I'm going to look weak. It's going to feel like it's a crisis. So the a couple things that I think is so important is to be able to, let me just pull up my slide here, do a couple of what I call, I think I have it, where to put it, the baby steps. Here we go. The baby steps is a couple of different things to do. First of all, you can name the shift before you actually make it. Don't just start acting differently. You have to explain why you're evolving. So you can say something like this: look, the pace of change of AI is happening here. No one can be an expert. None of us can. So I'm going to try doing something different. I'm going to learn and I'm going to learn all of this. I hope you'll do the same and we're going to figure this out together. So this gives your people some context about what you're doing. And it signals that this change is intentional and strategic and not a sign of crisis or of weakness. Do this in low stake moments. Don't do it in a moment of crisis, is the second thing I would say. So when you're looking at this, you can say, I'm still figuring out how to use AI effectively. What are you learning? Or I've been thinking about X, Y, Z, and I'm genuinely uncertain about this. What are you seeing? Again, asking the questions to put into place your uncertainty in your questions. Again, normalizing the fact that you have these questions. You can say also, I tried this thing this week. I tried vibe coding. I tried creating an agent. It didn't work. And here's what I learned. And those are incredibly powerful moments. Again, but they're done in low stake moments. Um, Again, I think pairing vulnerability with direction, this is a key skill that I have seen some leaders do extremely well. So never just say, I don't know, and stop and not say anything else. You need to also follow up with some next step action. So you say, I don't know. And here's what this is how we're going to figure it out. I was wrong, and here's what I'm doing differently. I'm uncertain, and here's what I am certain about, what I'm confident about. This is what I know and what I don't know. And the thing that this is the key thing is being able to admit uncertainty while still offering a path forward, because that is what leadership is. Let's say the fourth one is to make it mutual. Again, this is not just about your vulnerability, it's about inviting people in. So, what are you uncertain about right now is something you can be asking. Where do you think we might be wrong? What would you try if you knew you couldn't fail? And so it shifts the vulnerability from being sort of a, here's my confession about something I don't know, to this is our shared exploration, our shared vulnerability in our areas of curiosity. I think this is a very important thing, the fifth thing here. Protect the first person who follows, because everyone is looking around at each other. Okay, this is a new way of operating here. We're going to be vulnerable. We're going to admit our mistakes. We're going to admit when we don't know the answers. And so, how you respond to the first person who demonstrates this is going to define whether this is real or it's theater. So embrace that first follower as an equal. I talk about this in my previous book, The Disruption Mindset. And the validation is what transforms a lone act into a movement. So you're creating a movement of curiosity, of vulnerability, of being able to thrive in uncertainty. And then the last point is to be consistent over time. So If you are vulnerable in one moment and then go back to command and control and needing to have all the answers, that is going to be very difficult to maintain your credibility because people are going, "What's going on here? You just destroyed trust with me." So again, this is why I believe baby steps, taking small steps in the beginning, and admit to people, I'm learning a new way of working. Help me figure this out. Tell me when I am needing some support and reinforcement on this, and I'll do the same for you. So I think those are some key areas. I have a couple other comments here that are just great. I see. Let me go see where I was. Transparency is missing. Uncertainty can be an enabler rather than an obstacle. Absolutely agree with that. Lynn, great to see you. Psychological safety in an organization is the most vital key to high growth innovation. Agreed. And the lack of it is a culprit behind mediocre performance and stagnation. Well put. I love this point. Leaders cosplaying rather than showing humility. I have a family member who is really into cosplay when you dress up in costumes, and it oftentimes feel like that. It just feels like another episode of The Office. And I have this one last comment before I move on. I've seen safety grow when leaders admit openly about being uncertain, invite questions, especially around AI decisions. When that happens, teams collab more and feel confident speaking up instead of pretending to have all the answers. This is great. I'm going to go on now and just finish here with the couple last points. I'm running over in time. And that is 6 practical ways to build, again, leadership credibility. And the first one, again, is to normalize not knowing. Start meetings with, what are you uncertain about this week? And share your learning edges publicly. Lead with questions and not answers. So replace, here's what we should do with, what are we missing? Ask, what would change if this assumption were wrong? So asking great questions instead of having all the answers. Apply what you know before you're ready. Don't wait until you know enough. Pick one business problem, and this week, try using AI to solve it this week. You've got 4 more days today to actually try it. And again, the learning happens from the doing, not the studying. Protect your learners, not just your performers. This is about recognizing people who are trying new things, even when they fail. So it's saying at the beginning of the journey, to say, hey, we're going to try this new thing. And regardless of the outcome, it's going to be great because we know we're going to be fine. And let's just go and learn and see what happens. And so make I learned something as valuable as I delivered something. The fifth is to embrace your identity evolution. Let go of being an expert and become the chief learning officer, the learner in chief. And then finally, rewrite this credibility contract. It is really about saying the old ways of credibility, again, still foundational, but your new commitment explicitly says, I commit to learning alongside you. And that is so important in this age of AI. So when you build flexibility into the plans, when you tell people it's intentional and you go first, you share your fears, your gaps and your mistakes, everyone else will follow too as well. All right. Let's see. Great to see you, Brayden. So good to see you here too as well. A couple great quotes from my quote poster series. Always keep innovating. Thank you so much, Brayden. Thank you so much for joining. I just have one other thing to close out today. Thank you for your patience. Next week, I will be talking about the difference between AI first and AI ready. So stay tuned for that because there is such a premium now to be what people are calling AI first. And I think a better way to think about that is AI ready. So join me next week and we'll talk more about that. In the meantime, all the best to you on your leadership journey. This is a big shift that we all have to take. And I wish you all the best on that journey. Take care, and I'll see you next week.